Welcome to office hours on the solstice of winter. So, the longest night of the year. Quickly going to go over the rules. Um, you're welcome here as long as you can commit to the following: to be respectful, be brave, be curious and compassionate, use I statements, and protect yourself while protecting each other. I am going to stop sharing. And someone submitted this question, which is great. So in my group, I offer these case studies as a way of kind of exploring dynamics without having people have to say what's happening for themselves or to get triggered. And so one of the case studies is an important person in your life, be it a boss, parent, partner, or sibling, is super stressed out and reacts harshly to you about a mistake you made. So the question was, how do you come back from that? Right? How do you come back from being super stressed and just like maybe behaving from your adaptive teenager and just really eviscerating somebody? Okay. So, first off, the foundational piece of the work that we do in the boundaries groups that I lead is to remember that everyone is equally valuable and that this doesn't change if you lose your temper. Right? So if I were to make a mistake, right, I scream at this person, whether it's my child, right, which I've done, it doesn't mean I'm a horrible person or a parent, right? It means I did something that I need to hold myself accountable for, and my value does not shift because of it. Okay. So that's the bottom line, right? We are allowed to make mistakes, and regardless of the mistakes we make, it does not impact our value or our humanity at all. We're able to be spontaneous, right? But if it encroaches on someone else, then we also need to hold ourselves accountable if we hurt somebody, right? It's the same way as if someone else hurts us, we would want them to hold themselves accountable. So I'm not carrying that pain. It's the same reason. One of the things that I noticed is there's this pattern, and I'm going to bring in the conflict between in Palestine right now. Okay. And just to bring it into it's everywhere in the collective consciousness right now. But this is a case in point of the refusal of holding oneself accountable for harm and how it perpetuates, right? Being able to go back to the original point of, and I know this is a tricky topic, but that this land was handed over by people who did not own it, right? And so it was like stated as this is for these people and all this stuff. Because that original boundary crossing, right? I hand this over to you, right? So it's like because that initial boundary crossing wasn't acknowledged, there's resistance to the give and take, right? Because there's one group that's denied something. Their humanity or their rights are less than another group of people. Okay. So that's like an overwhelming topic. But if we were to shrink that, I'm just noticing my back is like tingly. So whenever I feel like that, I know I feel into the sensation, and that sensation is fear, right? And it's that fear of, oops, maybe I said something to offend somebody. Okay. So now it shifts from my back to my chest. And that fear now has shifted to dread, right? For me in my body and the particular childhood that I went through, was that mistakes were not allowed. Threatened extreme punishment, being kicked out of the home, someone harming themselves, or what would happen if I made a mistake. And so that lived experience, rather than growing up as a child going, oh, I can say something that crosses a boundary, or I might hurt someone's feelings, but that's going to be okay. Instead of that lived experience, I experienced making mistakes as then I would be less than, right? And this dynamic lands in the wounded child. Okay. Wounded children, if they do not know that they are valuable, then they will go out in the world like this. And then at times, because they allow their boundaries to be crossed over and over, will act out like this. They'll become the adaptive teenager, right? And cross someone else's boundary as a defense mechanism. Okay. Something else that is important to understand is there are some kids, so not good or bad, that feel like they were like sliced, like the best thing since sliced bread, right? So perhaps in their family of origin, they were the golden child, right? And so they learned that they were actually like this. Nothing they could do would be like challenged because they're just like the sweetest kid or my favorite child or all these other things, right? And so if a young child has the experience of being better than others, right? Either behavior, appearance, academic success, those types of things, it's going to be really, really hard for them to own up to a mistake. Okay. But beneath this, underneath this, someone who has tied their value to their appearance or their academic success or anything like that, someone pleasing their parent, right? Being the golden child in the family, their self esteem is actually like this. Because what happens is they know that if their value is contingent on anything external, right, performative or whatever, it's fragile. Okay, so even if a wounded child thinks that they're all that, underneath it is a terror that they'll make a mistake, because wounded children with large egos, right, are actually still lost children. By a lost child, I mean a child who doesn't feel seen or known by their parents. Scapegoats are also lost children because scapegoats are often blamed in the family system for all the issues or whatever. Okay. So, this long, convoluted explanation to go back to what if an important person in your life is super stressed out and reacts harshly to you about a mistake you made? Let's flip this and go, what if I was that very, very harsh person? Okay. What I want to do first is, if I want to repair the relationship, I want to get into my functional adult. Okay. So, for instance, if I feel an urgency to repair things, like right now, and it has to be done perfectly, it's likely either my teenager or my wounded child trying to repair because their safety or their ego or their face is contingent on repairing it, right? Like, oh my gosh, you have to forgive me. Please, I'm so sorry. I'm a horrible person. I did it again and I'm so sorry. Please forgive me, right? Actually does this. So, an apology that comes from an adaptive place doesn't feel authentic, right? So, I remember before doing my boundary healing work, I had this best friend, and it was like my first best friend. And my first best friend was like in young adulthood. And she was like, I was like so enamored. It was like such a tight relationship. But I would do or say things that really annoyed her, and the ways that she would kind of reprimand me were very, very familiar to my mother. So when I would do something, right, my felt experience was she would do this, like get into her teenager, because it would be character assassination. It would not be talking about the behavior. Judy, all you want is this, blah, 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 blah. And I would immediately drop into my little one. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me, you know? And then she's like, I just need time. And so the chase would then turn into my teenager trying to change. But no, you just have to hear my example, right? I couldn't honor her boundary of she needed space. Instead, I was like super reactive and please forgive me. Please tell me that we're going to be okay, kind of thing. Okay. So if you are apologizing, if I am apologizing from a place of my adaptive teenager who needs the other person's approval, right? To like calm things down or be okay again, or in my wounded child to know that I'm lovable, right? The other person's going to feel it. Just like in couples counseling or couples coaching, when the partner's looking at the other person for like them to change or them to fix a relationship, I know that they're an adaptive part because the need is too intense. The need for the other person to respond a certain way is disproportionate, right? Because the need is actually from childhood. I needed my mom to allow me to make mistakes. I needed to know that I would be secure in my belonging in my family, right? And that intensity of needing someone to apologize would feel very controlling or kind of not very clean, not very authentic, okay? So what happens is if I make a mistake and I react very harshly to someone who's really important to me, I need to kind of pause, right? Do my visualization where I ground my body to the earth, kind of help me ground and like exit out all of this intensity that's more than just mine. And then fill my body up with light and warmth from the sun above me. And I expand the light through my heart around me. My little ones, I just regulate, I reparent. So my littlest one, I would hold on my lap and just say, it's okay to make mistakes, little Judy. You're supposed to. That's how we learn, right? And then gently put her face to mine and say, only look to me for love and safety, nobody else. Don't look at the other person. I'm here now and I have your back no matter what. Okay, it's okay. And then I might look at my tween and go, oh, you are so perfect. As awkward as you are, you know, all this stuff, it's totally, I am here now, right? And I see you, and tween, you belong with me. I will never cast you out. I'm the one you've been waiting for, and I'm here now, and I have your back no matter what, and I'm not going to shame or blame you. As you are enough, and you're perfect. Only look to me. Okay, and then I would imagine bumping shoulders with my teenager because they never like to make eye contact and go, oh my, I'm so proud of you. My teenagers need three things: respect, validation, and a boundary. I'm so proud of you. You want to just fix this and apologize and all this other stuff. These are the ways that you adapted to get us to where we are now. And I'm so proud of you. It makes total sense that you're anxious to remedy the situation with the other person. You just want to make it go away. Totally makes sense. And I'm here now. I need you to hand the wheel over to me. So that I apologize and try to repair and not you. Only look to me for your validation and safety, not to anybody else. They can't give it to you, only me, right? And then as I reparent and calm them down and regulate to my prefrontal cortex where my functional adult lives, I can then go to the other person and go, hey, I realize that I have been dysregulated for a really, really long time. I've been in so much pain and have just been lashing out right and left. And I completely understand if you don't trust me because I do this a lot. But I really want to let you know that I understand this dynamic now. I'm taking something out on you that actually isn't yours. It has to do with my sense of self-esteem, and I'm putting it on you. And I'm really, really sorry that I not only did it yesterday, but that I've been doing it in our relationship. And I want to let you know that I am going to take care of it. I probably won't be perfect at it. And I welcome you calling me in when I do it. You're important to me, and I'm going to show you through change in my behavior. Right? And then the other person's going to watch. Right? So just like if another person were harsh to me and they just kept taking it out on me, then they apologize, but they keep doing it. I'm going to know it's not, I can't trust this relationship. I can't trust this person, right? It's not safe right now until they do their work. It just means, it doesn't mean that they go down. It just means as the dynamic is right now, I'm going to pull away, give more space. But if they start to change the behavior and actually follow through and able to stop themselves in the moment and go, oh my gosh, I think my teenager's driving the bus right now. I just need to pause. I notice myself wanting to lash out at you, and I just need a minute because I know it's not you. It's the holiday season. And it just brings up this ache in me, and then taking a pause. And that's like, oh, that's felt different, right? And I can get a little closer. So anytime there's mistakes or harm that happens in a relationship, there's an opportunity to correct, to repair, and to strengthen the relationship. Right? So in any intimate relationship, whether it be familial or romantic or platonic, there's these three levels. Okay? So one is attunement. I get you. Oh my gosh, we like resonate. We're so funny, besties, little samesies. Okay. There's misattunement, like, oh my God, I'm like having a stressed out thing, and this other person's like, what's going on? This is totally fine, right? It's misattunement. And then repair. In relationships that are constantly attuned and everyone's so great and love, it's not real. Because one person in their authenticity is inevitably going to rub against somebody else. Doesn't mean they're like all out fighting, but this conflict, this friction has to happen because I'm a different person than somebody else. Conflict is not bad. Conflict means you're actually showing up in your authenticity. Why do you have to eat at that restaurant again? I don't want to go to that restaurant, or I'm really strapped for cash and I can't go out and eat. If you want to go out and eat, can you like spot me, Like those are authentic conversations. And so we can only get to a deepening of a relationship by having the conflict, that friction, and then being able to show up, oh, I see you were stressed about finances. That makes sense, right? What about we do this? And so when there's a repair, then you know the strength of the actual relationship. If you keep avoiding the conversation or you put stuff under the rug, you'll never know the strength of a relationship. You're just trying to play nice. Any thoughts or questions around that, or other questions for office hours?
I'm gonna take a shot at
Please.
something that's not fully developed, but I'm gonna try.
Mhm.
So, um, let's say hypothetical scenario. There's a fallout between friends from having this authentic, communication, etc.
Mhm.
And friend number one is the harsh one. Friend number
Mhm.
two is the sensitive one, let's say for today.
Okay.
Um, like I think I know the answer to this. So I'll say, so part of me thinks that if friend number one and two can't get it together, like can't come to a place where they're able to authentically say, I made a mistake, or, friend, I forgive you, then maybe their relationship was never truly authentic because they could, they can't get to the place where they can see each other's humanity or imperfection. Um, that's what part of me thinks. But then, different stroke for different folks. I think there's some people who believe like, oh, you disrespected me, and so therefore you can't be my friend and you can't be in my circle. And it's actually something that's going around right now is like this I think it's a TikTok. It's like the real flex is I should have sent it to you actually, Judy. The real flex is to have your boundaries basically supersede your empathy,
Say
right?
more. Supersede.
So like don't have empathy so much so that it impedes on your own boundaries. And like
Mm.
I get it. And everybody's like, yeah, yeah. Well, like there's a part of me who identifies more with friend number one, who kind of, I have a temper. I can snap. Um, who's like, but wait, friend number one sometimes is going through something and just doesn't know how to, you know, do it or say it or
Mhm.
whatever. Like, I mean, can we slow down? Um, so I guess if there's anything that's coming from this in terms of a question, I would say I find myself, I'm just going to out myself, but I find myself friend number one in different situations. And sometimes it's easier than others to approach the person, explain what happened, and move on. And in others, it's very much like the person shuts down completely and they basically create a boundary and they're like, yeah, I'm done. Thanks. Bye.
Mhm.
In those situations, despite my capacity to see like, well, this is, my capacity to forgive people and move on and that kind of thing. The appropriate I'm saying this because I know there's a finite answer, but I'm hoping it opens up something else. But the appropriate thing is to respect that person's boundaries and
Mhm.
say, okay, bye, thanks, see
Mhm.
ya. But I guess in terms of maybe what I'm trying to get at is like the preventative measures or what to do before all of this comes about. Like, is it an issue of choosing friends? Is it an issue of communicating clearly the type of person I am or the challenges that I have around communication, etc.? Is it that my circle's too big and, whatever? Anyway, so just any thoughts around that type of situation?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna just kind of, I forgot to write down notes, so I'm gonna go one at a time and see if I can remember it. When you were like, "So I'm apologizing and let's move on," right?
Hmm.
That's your speed, and the other person might have a different speed, right? So the
Okay.
nervous system takes quite a while to calm down,
Hmm.
especially if there's historic trauma on this person with a critical parent,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And so if you're like, "Oh my gosh, I have this crisis that's happening and I just have been in this space and I just took it out on you. I'm really sorry. Can we move on?" Right? That's going to be too fast for this person. 'Cause it's like, yes, thank you for telling me what's happening for you, but do you see me is what this person might experience, right? Like, if there was more empathy also for this other person of like, "Hey, I've been dealing with this other thing, and the story I make up is that it might have triggered your stuff with your critical parent." Does
Mhm.
any of that resonate? Well, yeah, actually it does. When you raise your voice and I just don't know what to do,
Mhm.
right? Can you tell me more about what that was like for you? Well, I was just trying to help, and then you just like jumped down my throat that I said the wrong thing. That makes total sense, right? So what someone's doing in the this was my stuff that I'm going through, and I'm going to open up space to see what your stuff that you're going through that got triggered in this dynamic, then there's safe space for both,
Mhm. Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Because they're both are human,
Mhm.
right? So this person's pain, like, why are you so sensitive?
Mhm.
Is coming from this, right? And it
Mhm.
might replicate their own wound from young childhood from a parent who's like, I'll give you something to cry about, right?
Huh.
Just notice what happens when I say that. What happens in you? You said, uh huh.
Yeah, what strikes me in that is the second part of the scenario, because I'm like pretty good at communicating my fault,
Hmm.
my wrongdoing, whatever. Like I can hold myself accountable in that regard. And I guess I've always presumed that in doing that, it would open the door for the person to share their part. Like, okay, now it's your turn. But that is a presumption that is not like that's not the appropriate way, because not everybody functions the way that I do, right? So to open up the space by also including the story that I make up about what might have been going on for you, is new, is a something that I would like to, I hope not to have to practice, but that I will, keep in mind. It requires an enormous amount of vulnerability to do that,
Yes.
to hold yourself accountable, first of all. So this is an added layer though. Oh my God. But I love it because, yeah, there's a cynical part that says, by the time, I mean, I love your demonstration, and in my experience, by the time people like decide they've been disrespected, they're finished. And they've talked to their friends about it, and their friends are like, "Oh no," So,
Right.
um, I think this added thing
Hmm.
is supportive, and helpful.
Hmm.
And I guess for me, that's all that matters. Like whether the person responds or comes back or whatever at that point is not my control. But what I can do is the full and complete, like, offering of my, like, reconciliation by bringing both parties in.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing is in you holding yourself accountable in vulnerability too, is you're
Hmm.
creating safety for the other person.
Hmm.
And so when I'm talking about healthy boundaries, it's you taking care of yourself, but in you taking care of yourself, you're also taking care of the other person. Because I own my feeling and I own the impact, even though my intention wasn't bad. I understand that I'm going to impact other people in a different way because they have a different lived experience, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So, me owning my stuff and allowing someone to say theirs, right,
Hmm.
creates enough safety that they actually show up. Now, this is what often happens when there's kind of a a rupture, okay?
Hmm. Hmm.
Is I'm in a bad place and I just, rah, right? This
Hmm.
person gets hurt and they go down, right?
Hmm.
They feel victimized, and then they withdraw. And you kind of regulate yourself maybe to this, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And then you're like, "Can we talk?"
Mhm.
And the other person comes in rigid as a teenager.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
this resistance to talking and being vulnerable triggers this
Mhm. Mhm.
into this.
Mm.
And then
Well,
when you go down, you go
mm.
immediately to, well, fuck you then. I'm
Yeah, I was gonna say,
right.
yeah, things don't go small, I get bigger. Okay, but go ahead.
Wait, say that again.
I was the direction of the growth, the size of the circle, it went small, which is probably what's actually happening, but nah, it goes, oh, okay, no problem.
Talk to the hand,
Bye.
right?
Well, you
But
ain't gonna
here's
play
the
me.
thing,
Yeah, yeah.
the
Hmm.
teenager,
Hmm.
this bigger, is always protecting a smaller one. Always.
Right, right,
Always.
right. Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
It's really, really, really hard for the teenager to acknowledge vulnerability because it's weak,
Right.
right?
Like,
And
yeah.
so if this one's like, well, fine, I'm just, I can't, I talked
Hmm.
to everybody and they told me to just walk away, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Because this one's protecting this one,
Right. Right.
right?
Right.
So if this one comes as a teenager, right? It's just like, well, I can't do it. You're just too much for me. You're just too
Mm.
extra, right?
Right. Oh God.
So
Hmm.
then this one, the work is teenager and the little one want to come out, and the functional adult's like, whoa, 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 let's slow this down, right? Teenagers need respect, validation, and a boundary. Hey, I totally get it. It was really hurtful what I said. And I totally understand that you're just like not wanting to engage with me anymore. And I
Hmm.
respect that. If you change your mind, I'll be here
Mm.
because I care about you.
Mm. Wow. Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, well, that wasn't a response that I was expecting,
Right.
right? Because if someone's like, well, yeah, I'm done. You're too extra. And then you're like, what do you mean I'm extra? They're like
I
confirmed,
used to
right?
think that,
Confirmed
right.
hypothesis.
Yeah.
Yes, this is done,
Thank
right?
you. Hmm.
The thing is, these are dynamics that are learned in childhood.
Mm.
Just in case you're like, why are all of my relationships like this? It is a blueprint from childhood dynamics from our parents.
Mm.
Because we won't, if I had a critical parent, it's going to be really weird to be in relationship with someone who's really loving and nurturing.
Mm.
And like, hey, what do you want? And then really listen and then actually let me do it. And then I'll be like, this is weird because I would not be used to it.
Mhm.
Right. But I would be used to someone saying, oh, I want to do this. Okay. Because I don't have a lot of friends and I really want to hang out. And okay, that's fine. I don't really want to do it, but I'm not going to hurt the friendship. And then all of a sudden it's like, we always do what you want. Right.
Mm. Mhm.
And then they're like, what? It's because I didn't show up at the beginning. Right. If they're
Mhm.
like, oh, I want to go, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds like that would be fun for you. I do not have that capacity. Would you consider something different? I'm setting a boundary, but it's testing the other person, right?
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I
Something
think.
happened at the end when I was like, I respect what you are saying, and I can understand why you just want to like walk away from this friendship. And if you change your mind, I'll be here.
Yeah. No, there's an openness to that that feels so like possible for me to do because that is actually how I feel. It's just that I've never thought to use those words. I have gotten to the place where it's like, you know what? I totally understand. Do what you got to do. But that's not what I mean. That's not what I mean. What I mean is, look, I get it. You're mad. I'm around. I'm not mad. And I get it. I'm a work in progress. But yeah, I think that's really, it felt very warm to say. And yeah,
So
so
love
mhm,
is about freedom. The
mhm,
love that we're taught in this society is about control.
mhm,
So love, if it can be free, like you can choose and I will still be okay,
mhm, mhm.
is freedom,
Right,
right? Not if you love me, you would stay.
right. Okay. I'm
Okay.
glad this is recorded. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for adding that.
Yeah, thanks.
Other questions?
I have well, I feel like I kind of have this figured out. I just want your perspective, I guess, on this.
Mhm.
Um, And it may sound a little immature, but
Who's
basically,
driving the bus? It might sound immature.
um, my teenage years.
Just basically not your functional adult.
Yeah, right, exactly. Okay, anyway, so I have in college, I had this friend group. It was me and three other ladies. And we were really close, really tight. We did a lot of things together. And after college, one of the friends, she like slowly started to back out of the friend group. So we all ended up moving to different places, except for the friend who is like separating herself. She actually lived in the same city with another friend. Um, but the friend who is separating herself, she um never like reached out to the other friend who lives in her city. She like
Mhm,
didn't try to meet up with her. Basically just like kind of fell off the face of the earth basically within our friend group. And it's just been very weird ever since. Me, I like harmony. Like I like for people to communicate. I like people to be at peace. Like I like for things to be understood throughout.
mhm,
And I have recently been like reconnecting with this friend that's kind of moved away from the friend group. And slowly I'm trying to figure out how to like be like, what's up? Like, what happened? Like, do you not
mhm,
like us? Did we do
mm,
something to you? Is there something wrong with you? I
mhm,
will say, I wouldn't say something wrong with you, but I will say she has mentioned that she has been going through something. And I understand like it's not my place to kind of like pry that out of her. I think a part of me is almost just like, do you not trust us? Like we
mm,
really were a tight group. And I don't know what happened. Like, I don't know if a part of me is like, okay, was this a convenience thing? Like, you were just friends with us because it was college. Like, you know,
mhm,
college, that's where you go to class together. You live in the same area and, that type of thing. Or is there something else that happened between the friend group? And honestly, one of the friends is just like, "I don't care." Like, she hasn't talked to me. She
mhm,
hasn't reached out to check in, like, obviously, she doesn't care about me, so it's like, why should I care? The other friend who lives in the same city as her is, like, really hurt
mhm,
because they were roommates, they were probably the closest within the friend group,
mhm,
um, and again, me, I'm just like, "Okay, what's going on? Let me try to figure it out. Let me bring her back into the friend group. Like, how do I do this?"
mhm,
Um But I'm getting to a point where I'm just like, it just needs to be what it is. Like, if she wants to do her own thing, cool. I will check in when I want to. And if she responds, cool. If she doesn't, cool.
mhm,
Um, but yeah, I don't know if I should like keep working on a friendship with her because I really feel like it's kind of non-existent at this point. But I do want like our bond that we had when we were in college because it was so good. Like we were tight friends. So I'm just like,
The two of you were?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
just me and her. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah.
So sorry, I was like so excited to talk about this. Okay, because there's something that I'm wondering. First off, when you're like, well, I don't know how to ask her,
Yeah.
just go, it's just like the feedback wheel is. When you stopped reaching out or when you moved away and you didn't really contact me, right? Whatever the behavioral thing was,
Mhm.
the story I made up was maybe I did something wrong, or maybe the relationship was based on convenience. And that story, whichever one you share, makes me feel sad or curious, right?
Mm.
Can you tell me what happened? Right? So, what you're doing is, I have this story and I want to check it out, but
Mhm.
I'm going to tell you what the story is so that the person has something to go from,
Mm.
right? Like, oh, yeah, actually, this thing happened, right? Or if they're like, no, nothing happened, then you know that they can't tell you.
Mm.
And it's nothing to do with you,
Yeah.
it has to do with them because we have stories in our mind. Like we live our childhood beliefs, worldviews into adulthood, right? So if they're not sharing, it might mean that they don't know or they don't want to tell you. It just means that relationship is going to be like this.
Mhm.
Okay. And
Yeah.
if it brings up something in you, that's something that you can work on.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I lost somebody, right? I got excited because you were like, I want everyone to be happy and peaceful. So the story I made up was that in childhood, maybe, right? If there was um, a role of mediator, of
Mm.
peacekeeper, of translator, of moderator, of, right? That you might have taken, you don't have to answer, in your home to make things calmer. No, this is what they meant. Oh, this is what they meant. See, everyone's happy again.
Literally all my life.
Okay, so this is why I got so excited, right? So if
Yeah.
you have a friend who's really, really hurt,
Mhm.
and so if this friend is hurt and this friend is like, and then you're like, la, 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 can you tell me what happened? And then like, oh no, she's not mad at you, la, 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 right? What you want to do in your function, this is a little one. What you want to do in your functional adult is say, if you're hurt, you should go talk to her directly
Mhm.
because I'm developing a relationship and I don't want to feel responsible for your relationship because it makes me feel like I have to take sides,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Totally.
And so if this one is like, oh man, can you ask her? Can you see? La, la, la. It's because this one might not have been able to in childhood be direct about their needs.
Mm.
Because maybe a caregiver was not able to answer directly or kindly. And so they've learned to be passive aggressive or bring in a third person to diffuse the tension,
Mm.
right? And so the key here is not to figure out this one. The key here is to step away from the middle and let them deal with it because they're the ones in the same city. If she
Mhm.
can't ask, then this is not right.
Yeah.
But the important thing is for you, if you enjoy the company and it's rekindling, then you build that relationship that's separate from your relationships with your other friends
Right.
because you're in different life stages now from undergrad.
Totally.
Okay.
Mhm.
You know what happened in undergrad? Undeveloped brains.
Absolutely.
Okay. It wasn't an intentional thing. It was just everyone was immature.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, yeah. And honestly, I think that is kind of the conclusion that I've come to, is just that if if there was something that happened and she doesn't want to say it, that's that's okay.
Yeah, but
And
it's
if she,
about asking, did something happen that you're uncomfortable saying?
I mean, yeah, I guess.
Right? And then you allow the other person to do the work. You thinking and wondering, and then that's a lot of emotional labor.
Mm,
And that's more like, so if this is the friend and this is you, you're doing this mind
mm,
reading.
mm,
You're not good at it.
right.
Nobody is. Nobody is good at mind reading. We're not supposed to do it. Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for that question. So I have a question in the chat. Let me see. Do you have a view on what role spirituality can take in healing inner adaptive children? So, spirituality, sidebar, sometimes gets confused with like religion. And so, here, spirituality for me is about our higher self. Okay. And so, that is also the same thing for me as a functional adult. So when I do the visualization of we're connected to the ground and then we pull in light, it's actually connecting us and aligning us to the larger, like spirit or universe or, little g God. Okay. And so the role of spirituality / functional adult is that there is endless love. This connects back to another question of like, well, what if I made a mistake? The answer, endless love, which does not mean I tolerate it, right? It means endless love. And what are the things that I need to resource myself enough so that I can heal my adopted children? I recently had this realization. I'm like, oh God, why do I hate holidays so much? And why am I just hate holidays. It's just really charged and a lot of stuff. And my teenager is always like, you deserve to rest. You worked so hard your whole life. You deserve to rest. Fuck the things or whatever. And then I'm like disorganized and it turns into a shit show, right? So it's understanding, oh, I'm using my inner teenager as a crutch to give myself a pass on not preparing what I need to have a smooth holiday season. And then my wounded child is like, woe is me. I didn't get the nice holiday season that I wanted, right? Because I keep repeating the dynamic. Because there's identity there. There's a familiarity there, as hard as it is, right? And so spirituality can help me get out of that rut, that same dynamic, and go, well, Judy, what if you resourced yourself with endless love? And what are the things that are really important to you? And how do you do that for yourself? Right? So I don't know if that answers the question.
That's really helpful. I like the perspective of just like love, because I do feel like when I felt most connected in a spiritual sense or in my relationships or with myself, there was just like more of the pie was occupied by love as opposed to like rumination or negative thought or they don't care or I'm victimized or and all this stuff. But recently I have been delving a little deeper in spirituality, non-denominational, and it's provided a lot of clarity around like the narrative like of like who I am and my story that for me I feel like has caused maybe certain levels of unhappiness, but maybe that comes from trauma. And so I think like it's been really helpful to work on like my personality, which is an adaptation of like it's how I learned to survive in life. But it's also helped to just be like, let me tap into less into the mind and more into this like energetic spirit realm of like to your point, I've done the sun meditation that you have done in our classes or coffee chats, and that's been really helpful. So I've enjoyed tapping into less of like the mind and more into like the emotion energy like realm that we can call it spirit or spirituality, but ultimately I don't know what it is. It's felt nice and calming. And I don't really know why, but I like incorporating love into the equation. So thanks for sharing that.
Mhm. Was it Einstein who said like love is like the endless energy or something? It's like a, I don't know, maybe I'll have to look that up.
Like intuition, stillness, yeah.
Mhm.
Like your mind can only do so much. There's much more intelligence in us that's unexplained. And maybe that is love, and it brings about creativity and stillness and calm and all this stuff.
Mhm. There was there were science experiments around energy, okay? So like they one of them was like saying hateful words to a plant versus like loving words to a plant, and it actually impacted how they grew. Same thing with water, right? So like they held a glass of water and then like really hateful or chaotic kind of thoughts, and then a glass of water with like loving, thoughts. And then they froze it, and the crystals were chaotic for the hate and like these beautiful, amazing patterns for love, right? And so just understanding how this happens on so many levels, right? Of this this connecting. How do we connect with each other through chaos and harm and breaking, right? Or through this like openness and just allowing space to be kind of enough for everybody. Something I wanted to just name is don't minimize generational trauma. So if there is a dynamic that's really rooted, like, self criticism or blah, 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 you want to look back to see if there's other people who have that similar dynamic. Okay, so for me, I named, I wallow in pity sometimes and also like justify not doing what I should do as an adult because, my pity. It was actually repeat from 2 generations back due to patriarchy. The women didn't have power. And so literally my mom would name powerlessness and victimhood, and her mother named powerlessness and victimhood justifiably, right? But there became an over-identification with that as self. I am a victim. And in that over-identification, it became true, right? So I have to watch myself falling into that dynamic because it's actually well grooved, right? And so if I want to stay close to my family energetically, I'll repeat the same dynamic.
That resonates. So you're saying don't minimize it, acknowledge it.
Yeah, you want to explore like, where does this come from? Right? Because our bodies are so wise. If it keeps happening, go, where does this come from? Right? I recently was kind of exploring this dynamic in one of my children who has a lot of anxiety, but around food consumption. Through some like guided visualization and something that I use, it's called family constellations. I was able to kind of track it back to, there was forced famine, the occupation in the Philippines by the Japanese. A lot of people died, similar to what's happening in Palestine, forced famine. And so the food restriction, the control, the anxiety around food, is this poisoned? Is this spoiled? Is this connected back, right? Even though she didn't live through it, nor her dad, there was memory,
That's wild.
isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah, it's amazing. We are in our bodies is so much history. That's why it's so important to clear stuff out when it happens, right? The apologies, the acknowledgement of harm, right? The more you clear out, the more spaciousness, the more freedom the next folks can have. Great. So nice to be with you all. We're at the end of our time. Happy solstice. Thank God the days are going to be, the sun is coming soon.